I'm Jess.
And I'm Karli. And this is the Only Human podcast.
I could just feel that I was like so out of alignment with myself and my values. I felt so empty. I started to feel like a shell of myself. That was so debilitating for me, like that fear of putting myself out there and just the fear of like letting people in. We have our emotional support water bottles. Yeah, we do. Now we got the giggles.
I can't believe we're finally in front of microphones.
I know. Are you feeling like a little nervous?
My performance anxiety is like having a field day right now.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just not used to like a full-blown production. Like
I know.
you did things right when you had your podcast, but I'm not used to like the mics and like the lights.
I know.
The
it's
camera.
very much professional. Feel like a little out of place even still, but yeah. It's really crazy.
I know, but it's been a long time coming. I'm so excited.
It's so funny because I feel like we feel like it's been a long time coming, but it really hasn't been that long. It's been like, what, 6 months?
Not even.
Yeah.
A little bit shy of 6 months.
Yeah, which is really crazy.
I know. But there's been so much going on behind the scenes, and I feel like we've been like obviously posting a lot about the Only Human Project, but I feel like we haven't had like any type of product behind it yet. And so I feel like it's intriguing, but it's also like, all right, what does that mean? Like, what is the Only Human Project? And how does the podcast like fit into it?
Yeah.
And obviously we're going to like get into all of that today, but I feel like we should probably just start by introducing ourselves because like we have very separate stories that ultimately ended up, coming together, but it wasn't always that way.
And we have very different backgrounds. We both came to the same conclusion and we're like both here today, which is just so interesting. And I think that's what like really plays into our story the most is just that like we're all only human and we all kind of came to the same conclusion, same place.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. I do love our story. It's kind of like a meet cute, I would say. Like it kind of is. It's funny. Like I love the background of like how we found each other, or I guess how you found me.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then I was with open arms.
So I guess like for timeline purposes, Karli had been just doing her own thing and working her corporate job. I had been about like 9 episodes into the Figuring It Out podcast. And at that point I was like still loving it, but also feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Like I actually decided like just before we met that I was going to start doing every other week episodes because every week episodes was just becoming too much between the editing. Like I was just doing it by myself and it was just a lot. Like financially, emotionally, just like time wise, like just physically not having the time. So anyways, I guess I'll take this part because it kind of happened to me. You just got a random DM one day.
I find you. Do you know what that's from?
I'm a horrible reference person. If you reference Shark Tank, maybe, or like the Phillies or something, but yeah, I don't think so. Okay, so I guess shout out to Brie Brophy. So one of our mutual friends.
That's so weird that you just called her Brie Brophy because she's my best friend from childhood. Okay, yeah, Brie Haynes / Brophy.
Brie Haynes Brophy. So a mutual friend of mine and Karli's I was actually at her rehearsal dinner for her wedding and she was just like asking me how the podcast was. And she was like, oh my gosh, I'll have to introduce you to my friend Karli. She has a podcast called Figure It Outable. And I was like, oh yeah, it actually at the time seems like you were still like actively doing it. And I was like, oh yeah, totally. You have to. This was in October of 2024. Mm-hmm. And so I had been like thinking about it, didn't really think much into it because I think I maybe released 1 episode at that point, whatever. But as time went on, I was like thinking about you. I was like, oh, that's so weird. Like I want to connect with her and see like, we're doing the same thing practically. It was so crazy to me that like my podcast was Figuring It Out and yours was Figuring Outable and we did not know each other.
I know.
Not even close. So I'd reach out to Brie probably again in like November or December and I was like, hey, do you mind just like connecting us? Never answered.
Ghosted.
And
Brie
she did
still
apologize
feels
for
so
that.
bad about that. And I can attest to this because me and Brie are very similar texters. Like we'll open a message, completely forget about it. And that's exactly what happened to her. I think she was just going to give me a heads up like, hey, I'm giving,
of course,
my friend Jess your number. And then like forgot to text me, forgot to text you.
Totally.
But she's still, every time this story comes up, she's like, I feel so bad.
So then me and my husband went out with her and her husband for New Year's Eve, and she like looked at me and she was like, I forgot to text you back. And I was like, yeah, it's okay though. So on New Year's Eve, she gave me like your Instagram or whatever, and I think like in the next couple of days I DM'd you and I was like, hey, like I'm a friend of Bree's, just wanted to like see if we can get coffee or something and just like chat. And of course you were like, yes, of course. And like literally think a couple days later, we were getting coffee.
Yeah. And I like, that's like one of my favorite ways to meet people. Like I've met a lot of like my adult friends through Instagram just because I feel like you like catch a vibe when you're looking at somebody's page and like just see what they stand for and what they're like. And so I was like so happy that you reached out, especially when Brie had given me the context that you had a podcast figuring it out. I was like, oh, we're going to hit it off.
Yeah.
And we absolutely did. But never in my mind did I think that you were going to like ask me to join forces. And was that in your mind? Like you said you were thinking about me, but like were you planning on asking me?
Yeah. It's so funny because.
So there was a plan.
There was a little bit of a plan. So no, like I said, at that time, I was like getting a little bit burnt out. And I was like thinking that you were actively like recording your podcast, which like it didn't really matter in the end, but I was like, why are we gonna do this separately? Like if I like her, like I should just ask her to like do it together. Like why are we gonna both do the same thing practically like 30 minutes apart from each other? It doesn't make sense. So I was like, but then I like talked myself off the ledge. I was like, no, you know what, like don't come on too strong, like just meet her first and then play like, later on. Yes. Just play the game. Like you can ask her another time. Like you're going to come off really weird and strong if you like literally ask her to be your podcast partner, co-host, like in the first time you met this girl.
Yeah.
So then what happened from there?
Well, you did ask me.
I asked you that day.
Yeah. At the coffee shop, which you are like a natural, I feel like you're more reserved. So when we first entered the room, like I was like, wait, maybe this like girl doesn't have the vibe that I thought. Like you were very, like your face was pretty serious. So much so that I was like, wait, is that who I'm meeting here? Because like it didn't register. Like usually when you see the person you're meeting, like your eyes light up and you're like, oh, hi. Like you like didn't really acknowledge me
just,
that
like,
much.
Had my RBF like.
Yeah. So I was like, interesting. All right. It'll take a little warming up. But then within like 10 minutes, I feel like we were just like chatting and just talking about like what motivated us to start our separate podcasts. And toward the end, you said like, well, where do you stand with your podcast now? And I was like, oh, I actually don't do it anymore. It's been like a year and a half since I released an episode. And, you know, that chapter is kind of like behind me. And you were like, well, would you ever want to like join forces and do it together? And not gonna lie, like in that moment, I feel like my answer in the back of my head was like, no. Like, and it's so funny how we can convince ourselves that we don't want the things that we really want.
Yeah.
But I think I had just, again, successfully put myself in that box of like, you have the corporate job again. Like, there's no space to do anything else. Or like, that was really hard to put yourself out there the first time. Like, you don't want to really go back to like climbing Cringe Mountain and like putting yourself out there again. And so I remember we kind of left it as like, all right, like, let me think on it. And you were like, no pressure. I don't want you to think that like you have to do this. Like, but I would love a co-host. And like, I would love, and there was a lot of like optics to work out. I was like, would it be like figuring it out now with like Jess and Karli? Like, would I be joining your podcast? Would we be launching something new? Like,
I feel like we started to like riff with that a little bit because I feel like when I asked you, I was like, well, would you be interested in like doing something together? I feel like that kind of like got us like the spark going a little bit. And we were kind of like, well, we could do this, but then it would be so nice to have like a co-host, but then this. And we kind of like started to get a little bit excited about it. And it was so cool because like, I can't explain it another way rather than like, I was like talking to like a mirror. Like you were saying things and I was like, I couldn't have said that better myself. Like that's exactly how I feel. And that's, you know, what I feel passionate about and stuff. And it was just so cool. Like, I felt like after, oh my God, what were we there for like 3 hours?
Yeah, it was
I felt like after that, I was like, I feel like I know this girl. Like, this is so cool. But yeah, so I feel like, honestly, how I feel like it went was I feel like you kind of were like, maybe you felt like you wanted to say no, but like you kind of said yes. And
I probably said yes with my eyes because deep down, like,
and I was like, don't even answer me right now. Like, please just like think about it. And then what happened? Like, literally the next day.
Well, by the time I was like driving home, I think I sent you a text and was like, I yes, like I'm in. And like truthfully, I think it became clear like God put you in my life. Like I feel like I tried to like suppress my desire to like have a podcast and put myself out there. And I kept fighting it and I kept like putting it to the wayside. And like even when I got in a groove with Figure It Outable, ultimately like left it behind when I entered corporate. And like I had been having a lot of conversations with my therapist about like how I wanted to like fulfill this like need inside me to like connect with people and create something bigger than myself. And I just been like praying on it, like give me my purpose. And then you like enter my life having like the carbon copy of my mission, asking me to join forces. Like I
Which is,
left
like,
being
such
like,
an easy, like,
yeah, that would have been, oh, and like the funniest part of the story, I had said this, so this is, it's still my lock screen because I've like, I will
Oh
never
my
change it,
God.
but it was January. So I
Yeah.
had just done like my vision board for
Mhm.
2025. There's a picture in the center and it says, I attract incredible opportunities into my life.
And wait, didn't you set that like literally the day that I reached out to you?
That you reached out. Yes.
That's actually insane.
Yes. So when I
But
put those
wait.
pieces together too.
But wait, no, that wasn't even it. That wasn't even the end of it.
Oh.
So after we met we met for coffee on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then what happened after that?
So yeah, we met for coffee on Tuesday, and then I think it was like the following Friday, I got Chinese food for dinner, and the fortune cookie said like your future will start on a Tuesday. And I was like,
all right,
done.
it's meant to be.
Done. Jess, sign me up. What's the name of it? Like when you want to
Oh
meet
my
for our
God.
first brainstorming session. Like I literally never looked back.
Yeah.
Like those signs, like I already knew that I wanted to do it, but those were just the nudges that I needed that like I was making
Yeah.
the right decision to like go, on board with you because you were already like, I was watching your clips and I'm like, she's amazing. Like I would regret not taking advantage of
the
this
opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like we, even in those like couple days after we met, like we were just texting about like random ideas and stuff that we had, and like we were
Yeah.
both getting so excited. Like I didn't realize that I kind of like lost a little spark, but like I did, and I felt it again, and I was like, wait, this is amazing. And it's so amazing to have a partner to be able to like bounce ideas off of, and like someone that can like, wait, what do we say, like something check each other.
Sanity
check each other.
That is like not something I made up. You're like, what do we say? As if like it's our inside joke.
No, but it's just so funny because like
I'm always like,
you always
well,
have these little
I'm
things that
very
you say.
corporate, like which
Yeah.
I don't even think that's a corporate term, but like I do have like I'm like, can
You
we just
have
level
these
set
little
real
things
quick
that you
or
say,
like
and I'm like, sanity,
yeah,
and
we'll
I
just
think
do
it's
this
the funniest-
async. And you're like, what are you talking about? When
Normal
a nurse
people don't do
and
things async. Like what? Everything is like just sync.
I don't know.
But anyways, yeah, no. Sanity check each other, and
yeah.
but
It's hard to do alone.
It is hard.
But I'm like so curious about how you even came to like figuring it out, because I feel like we've talked a little bit about it, and I feel like we started our separate podcasts for like such different reasons.
I know. Yeah.
But
We
it's funny
were-
because it like was the same mission, but
Yeah.
the intent was a little bit different.
Yeah. I think like, oh my gosh, it feels like a really long time ago at this point, but when I started figuring it out, it didn't seem like it was a long time coming to most people, but like if you were in my very close circle, like I was thinking about starting that podcast for over a year, and I literally just like could not bring the courage to like start it and really put myself out there. And it just felt like so scary, and it really took a lot of like external validation and people kind of just telling me that I sounded really passionate about it and that it was a good idea and that I could do it. It took so much of that until I finally like mustered up the courage to be like, okay, I literally can't get this off my mind. I might as well just like see it through.
How did you even
try.
get to that point though? Like
I know.
of wanting to start it?
Some days I like actually forget, like because it was such a almost like epiphany moment.
Yeah.
Where I was just driving home from work one day, and I was just thinking about how I feel like we don't talk about the things that we go through enough, and the things that go on in the back of their head, or in the back of our head. And we're all feeling the same things, but like we don't talk about it. When we talk with friends, it's like surface level, or at least in my experience, it's like we never really get deep about things. Or like, are you feeling like you're kind of lost in this stage of like being 25 or 26 and you just like don't know where you're supposed to be and feel like you should be somewhere else? Like, are you feeling like that? Because I'm feeling like that. Like those conversations never happen, and I was just like feeling like I know we're all having the same feelings. And for me, I at the time was 26, a homeowner and married, and I felt like that was the traditional track that like if anyone feels like they should be on the right path, like that they're on the right path, it should be me, right? Like I checked all those theoretical boxes, and I was still feeling like confused and like, should I be single and traveling? Like, am I doing this wrong? Am I like wasting these like years of my life? So it's just, yeah, it's very interesting. And sometimes like I don't have a really great answer for why I started a podcast for that. I felt like it was just a great medium to kind of like have those deep chats and be able to like share it. Other than all of us, like millions of people getting in a room together and just like chatting, I just felt like that was the best mode of delivery.
Yeah, no, I feel like both of us are super similar in the way that we love talking to people, but not just like small talk. Like we love details, like we love the nitty gritty. Like when we sit down with somebody, like I think we crave deeper connection and like intentional conversations. And so I think that's why we hit it off right away. But I also think that's why we both love podcasting, because it's a carved out space for conversations and it's long format too. So there's no rush. It's not clickbaity. It's just like human to human. And I feel like even when I'm like out and about, I hate bars that like the music is so loud, because I'm like, I can't hear who I'm talking to. And like, that's why I go out. Like, that's what I get energy from. It's not like dancing. It's not getting drunk. It's like talking and connecting with people. And if I can't hear myself think, let alone the person's voice that I'm having a conversation with, like I am ready to go home. My therapist one time was like, you should really look into like those loop, like earbuds or something. It like helps drown out the background noise. And I was like, you're so right. Because like, that's what I enjoy. That's my reason for like going out. That's how I get like my
being
fix.
Social. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In contrast to you, I feel like I know so clearly why I started a podcast. And not to be dramatic, but I feel like my like story really starts from my childhood. And I feel like I reached a point that I had to do something so drastic, which ended up being quitting my corporate job and starting this podcast and traveling abroad. But like that was a culmination of years and years of like decision making and experiences that I had. So literally, not to be dramatic and like take it all the way back to the start.
This is long format.
That is true. That's why we're doing a podcast. But yeah, when I was little, I feel like I was always like a high achiever. I always loved to like make people proud. I loved to, gain kudos and just have that sense of pride that like I was a good student and I was a good athlete. And so I feel like I became addicted to that a little bit. And in high school, I started to like get pretty good at running, and it was brought to my attention that I could like potentially do it in college one day. And I never thought that I would be like a collegiate athlete. Like I never even thought about doing athletics in college. And when my coach threw out that, oh, you could do this at Penn, like this running career could take you to like an Ivy League school. Like I couldn't even name the 8 Ivies. I was like, okay, cool. Like one was in my own city, UPenn, where I ended up going. And like I didn't even know what UPenn was. So like it was never really something that I had my sights set on. All I knew is I liked to make people proud and I liked to impress people. And so when they told me like, oh, this is something shiny that you can chase, I was like, say less. Like I'm going to chase it like physically, because I was a runner. I didn't even mean to do that. And so I like worked really hard, ended up having to decide between like Penn and Penn State, and ultimately chose Penn. And I loved both schools. I genuinely think I would have been happy at either school. But ultimately, I chose Penn because people were telling me, you don't say no to Penn. At least go and try. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I could see the way that people's eyes lit up when I told them that I could potentially go run at Penn. And I felt that like this was a golden ticket that I had to like capitalize on. but I don't think I really understood what that entailed and like the trajectory that was going to set me up on for the rest of my life. So entering Penn, I just entered into like the College of Arts and Sciences, ended up transferring into the business school. Again, once I did that, everybody was like, well, you're in Wharton, you should do finance. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I should do finance because like, again, I saw the way that people's eyes lit up.
Yeah.
I heard the way that people were saying that you'll never have to worry about money again. You'll be set. And I wanted to just continue on that track of from the outside, like having it all, never really paying attention to like how all of these things made me feel or not feel on the inside. And so, you know, I stayed with finance. Come graduation, I took a finance job, moved to New York. And again, like you, very different, but was checking all the boxes. So on paper, I was doing things that like are the definition of success, like working on Wall Street, moving to New York after graduation, having a great group of friends. It was really like all I could ever ask for. But I could just feel that I was like so out of alignment with myself and my values. And I felt so empty. I started to like feel like a shell of myself. So I kind of made a few changes. I ended up like moving back to Philly, took like a lateral job. So it was still in finance, was working as an ETF sales trader at a prop firm. And I did that for a year until I literally hit my breaking moment. And that's when I was like, I need such a drastic change. So it was May 2022. So about 3 years ago at this point, and I was 25 years old. And I was like, this is my quarter life crisis. Like I can't continue at this rate because I don't even know what I like to do anymore. I don't even know who I am anymore. I didn't realize that since I was basically 17 back in high school, like I had been living life for everybody else. And I was making decisions along the way, but they weren't for me and they weren't conscious decisions. Mm-hmm. And so how did I expect to like feel happy, or how did I expect to feel like a sense of fulfillment when not once did I ask myself, is this what you want? Are you actively choosing Penn? Are you actively choosing Wharton and finance and New York? Like I was always just kind of just getting like funneled into the direction that I thought I should be going. And, you know, come May 2022, I was like, no more. Like I too had really like sat with it. It sounded like you dealt with a lot of like deliberation when you were starting your podcast. And similarly, when I was choosing to give up my finance career, I had written in my journal like every day for months and months leading up to it, like visualizing what that meant, like really expressing my concerns because I was like extremely nervous of what my peers would think, about what my parents would think, really everybody. Like I thought that it was going to be a shock and looked down upon because I was just tearing up this golden ticket and just like throwing it away. And I was really scared to disappoint people for the first time in my life because bringing it back to like when I was a child, I was always such a people pleaser. And that's what I lived for, is to make people proud of me. So ultimately, I ended up just deciding to go for it anyway and literally flipped my life upside down by leaving my corporate job and just pressing pause. I ended up moving down the shore for the summer and starting teaching Pilates and bartending. And in the fall, I ended up going to Australia for a couple months and just doing some solo traveling. And alongside all of these new ventures, I started a podcast to talk about that because I wanted to let people in on the secret that like from the outside, I looked like I had it all, but it didn't feel that way on the inside.
Did you ever ask yourself, like, am I the only one feeling this way? And I wonder if other people are feeling this way, or because I feel like in my experience, I kind of had the idea that other people felt the way that I was feeling. And I wanted to make it more of like a conversation of like, let's all share about how we feel because it's probably the same and we'll feel better about ourselves. But I'm just curious if like, it was more like you always say, it's like, it was cathartic for you and like more therapeutic. Did you ever feel like you felt other people felt that way too and you wanted to like make people feel less alone? Or it was more in like, I'm going to feel better about like letting everyone in on like the fact that I'm not feeling fulfilled and yeah, I don't know.
I think it was a little bit of both. I don't know if this like sounds weird to say, but I feel like because on paper I looked like I had it all, like that wasn't lost on me. And like when I say like Ivy, like collegiate track runner, like I feel like I had such a good resume and like a recipe to be happy. And so I almost want it to like break down that wall of like, hey, if I'm not happy and I look like I have all these things, because I think like through the grapevine, I would hear people say like, oh, like make comments about my life or how I was doing things right. And I think it never sat well with me because I was always like, people think that I'm super happy and that I have everything going for me and all of these things. But like, I just felt like I was like not living my truth and I was kind of just living like a facade.
Yeah.
And I've kind of always felt passionate about dropping that veil and being vulnerable, like even bringing it back to in high school, I used to like write a blog and I would write about like body image or like, I don't know why I've always felt a duty to like make people feel less alone and kind of use myself as a use case for that. And it's not easy. I feel like sometimes people look at us starting a podcast or me like talking about those things in blog form. And I was never somebody that it was easy to share, but the mission always
like
was greater.
everything.
Yes. Outweighed the hesitation. But it's been a struggle every step of the way to put myself out there, which is why when you found me and we connected, I wasn't doing Figure It Outable anymore.
Yeah.
I had started in corporate again after taking that hiatus. And I ultimately stopped the podcast altogether because I was a little bit scared that if I was job searching and people found it, that I would be like judged or something. And again, I was sick of fighting that uphill battle of like caring about the judgment. But I think that's definitely kind of like a misconception that people that start things like this are like always
are just like confident
and like
it's
it comes
easy to put yourself out there. Yeah, totally. I think it's so funny too, the contrast between us. Like for you, maybe it didn't feel super natural, but you felt like a duty to share and to like let people in a little bit. And I've always been the complete opposite. Like vulnerability has been historically so scary for me. And like that was a huge reason why it took me so long to start the podcast, was because like I was going to be letting people in on like the thoughts that like I really just kept to myself, whether they were good or bad. Like just being vulnerable, putting myself out there, like that was my biggest hurdle. And I've just always been such a private person. And I think that like I surprised myself in wanting to start a podcast. And that's why sometimes I say like, I don't really know why I decided like a podcast was the way that I wanted to do this, because it just seems like so out of character for me. But I think like deep down that truly is who I am. I love connection and I love like just getting to the root of people, like who they are, you know, like all the psychology behind it and just like understanding like, why are you? Why do you have this like high achiever personality and like all these things, going back to childhood and thinking about like childhood traumas and things like that, like that aren't very obvious, but like just getting like doing the deep dive, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's cool that we both have been able to find an outlet that like works for us. And like, although it's not super comfortable sometimes and it's like scary, I think it's like really good for both of us.
I agree. I also love how we kind of are complete opposites in some ways. Like we're similar in a lot of ways, but in the sense of you being like, again, a homeowner, married, and a natural introvert, and like just somebody that's more private, and me being like a chronic oversharer, like not married, like totally single, and then also just like doing like the digital nomad life, like just like such a free bird. But somehow we are still so similar. And I think what it boils down to is we are both very naturally curious, but we're also like empaths. I feel like we feel so deeply, which is a blessing and a curse, because it's a blessing in this regard, but then like I'll see an old man like eating lunch by himself and like my day's ruined.
Like, gonna cry.
My day's ruined.
I was literally watching Shark Tank this morning, and I like every single pitch I'm like gonna cry, because I'm like, oh my gosh, their dreams are coming true. Like this is amazing. Like I feel like I'm in their shoes, and I just like am so happy for them. It's like insane. I'm like, can I just like watch TV and not like want to cry?
I know. But I think that's why we feel so passionate about helping others navigate their emotions because we know how we feel. And so if we can be any type of resource for others when they're feeling the same way, I think that's why we both, like, coming from such different backgrounds and also like just different like life stages, we still have the same mission and desire to like make people feel less alone.
Yeah. Was there a specific reason why you stopped Figure It Outable? Like, because when we met, I was actively doing Figuring It Out. It was like a little bit more of a recent thing.
So when I chose to go back into corporate, because I was on a little hiatus for about 1.5 years, and then I was like, it was never meant to be a permanent thing. I always knew that I was eventually going to go back into corporate, but just not necessarily finance. So I started job searching again, and I was just fearful that I was going to be with a company that wouldn't ultimately allow me to do both. And I'm so blessed that I've landed a spot that does allow me to do both, and I've been there for 1.5 years, and I'm happy, and I've found a career that feels sustainable to me. But because I only knew careers that weren't sustainable to me, and working at like a bank or a prop trading firm, you're not really supposed to like, you know, or many people don't have like a big passion project on the side.
Yeah.
And so again, I was just like fearful of that judgment. And honestly, Figure It Outable was never really like something that I saw for the long term. It was really just a way for me to express myself, and it was a passion project. It was like a tool to help me really step in to my own and like put myself out there, challenge myself in a new way, and just have a new passion project. And that's why I didn't do things right. Like we always say, you're very detail oriented. You did Figuring It Out, your podcast previously, to the nines. Like you did it professionally. I was recording like with a mic in my bedroom, and it showed. Like the quality was not good. I was not marketing it effectively. I didn't have clips for social media. And so I think it just naturally came to a close, and I honestly put that chapter behind me. I never thought I was going to have another podcast.
Yeah.
But
I think it makes sense. Like, I think I've never thought about it in your case that way. Like, it kind of served a purpose for you a little bit. So it kind of makes sense that it just like naturally, I just didn't know if there was like, it was like a good excuse for you to be able to stop doing it because it was like still uncomfortable. Did it ever become more comfortable to you, or was it always like the same level of like scary?
Yeah, I was shitting my pants every time. I was on like episode 30, and I was still like, when is this going to feel normal?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like speaks to the comment I made earlier of like, it was never easy. It's still not easy.
Yeah.
Like right now I'm sitting here like kind of shaking. Like like it's nerve wracking. Yeah. But the desire to like do something that I'm passionate about with somebody that is passionate about it equally as much, like that's more important to me. Yeah. And so these things are worth it to push through the hard, to push through the uncomfortable, because one day I think it will get a little bit more comfortable, but it's almost like you have to choose your hard.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's the perfect segue into just like introducing, like as we wrap up with this intro episode, introducing like what the Only Human Project is and how the podcast fits into it. Because like, yes, we're launching a podcast, but like the vision goes so beyond that. So I feel like we should dive into that now.
I know. I mean, I feel like the best place to start is just like, how did the name come about? So like, as Karli said, we literally were texting. Oh my God. It was probably like January. 2 to 3 weeks of like texting back and forth. Like, okay, are we going to keep figuring it out? Are we going to do Figure It Outable? Are we going to make a new name? Like, what's the name going to be? Is it going to be whatever? And we were just trying to work out so many details, and nothing was hitting. Yeah. Literally nothing was hitting. Like, ChatGPT was like working overtime. We were like texting each other like all these names and stuff. And I think we decided that we wanted to like create our own new thing together and not kind of like hop onto each other's like previous thing. Yeah. But Karli came up with the $1 million idea.
Which it's funny because we've since pivoted.
We have.
But I remember where I was. I remember like the exact moment. And I probably sent in a voice memo because that's the only way I communicate. But I think I was like, I have the idea. We're going to call this the Only Human Project. And the whole basis is we interview celebrities and showcase how they're only human. Because like very rarely do they sit down for like a long format talk and get to like tell their story. I feel like there's always like headlines. There's always like clips of interviews. Like people are writing about them. They never get to sit down. And also,
narrative.
Right. They don't choose the narrative. And there's also like this misconception that people that have like status, money, fame, success, talent, like are just immune to mental health struggles, but often like they have it maybe even worse. And I feel like just having a show to humanize the people that we idolize, again, dropping the veil, would be like so insanely helpful, because at the end of the day, we're all only human.
Yeah.
And that was really like the origin of the name. And again, it's since pivoted because turns out celebrities don't really want to come on a talk show of two girls that nobody knows.
That nobody knows.
Not going to say that's not still the dream.
Yeah.
But I think it still works because
Totally.
we are still only human as well.
Of course. And I think that like initial mission with the celebrities like resonated with you so much too, because like, as you said, you had this persona that like people thought that you had it all figured out and like you were living the dream, and like you weren't. And I'm sure that celebrities feel the same way. And I think we idolize celebrities so much in this day and age, and like we know all the we think we know all the ins and outs of their lives. And like pulling back that curtain, it would be like super helpful, I think, for everyone, for like us to feel like, oh, you know what, we're actually not that different from these people. Like our platforms and our maybe like financial statuses are different, but like they have the same, you know, problems and like feelings that we do. And I think like that would make us feel a little bit better too about our own lives. And then also for the person to be able to like actually be seen for the human that they are and not the other things like the headlines. And
oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, even just think about like athletes. Like, for example, if they're in a World Series game and they screw up big time, like how much hate they get online. I feel like people saying they suck, and like thinking about the human behind the player.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, singers and like scandals of who's dating who, like just thinking about that person like sitting at home, like looking at their phone, reading all of the things that like is circling on like TikTok and news outlets. Like it's sad that we kind of like just don't consider them humans. But yeah, that it was obviously like the impetus behind the name. But then I think like just speaking to what the Only Human Project is and the mission, I feel like historically mental health is really looked at as such like a solo pursuit. So whether it's like talking to your therapist in your room behind a closed door, or even like listening to a podcast like this, but likely it's like in your headphones and you're like going on a walk and you're still by yourself. Like we really want to transform that experience into a shared human experience and something that it's a community, it's a collective effort. Because if we're all going through this thing and we're all struggling with this thing called mental health, like why not do it together and in like an open format?
Yeah.
And that's really why, yes, we're passionate about this podcast, because we can bring this message digitally to a lot of people, but we're so passionate about bringing it into real life and creating a community around it.
Yeah. And I feel like we're still along the way going to figure out like how we're going to actually do that, you know, like what the logistics are going to look like of that. But we are like super passionate about at least starting in our own hometowns, like starting with some like live events that like are just people like meeting each other and like just having an ally in that person and knowing that like you can be open and like vulnerable with someone and like and get to know them like as the human that they are, you know?
Yeah, I mean, even just envisioning like showing up to an event called like the Only Human Project, and you know that like you are going with the intent to like meet like-minded people who like care about connection and mental health, and just like showing up in an authentic way. And then like picture that like being amplified into the world, where like one day I dream about like people wearing merch that says like the Only Human Project on it. And like I'm so done like being scared about putting dreams out there. Like this might seem so crazy, but like that's what I want one day. Like I want people to be walking down the street and see that they're wearing Only Human Project merch, and like you have an instant ally. Like you know that you could stop that person and like have a genuine conversation because you like prioritize connection.
Totally.
And these live events, like while they may start small, just like hosting a happy hour or Pilates down the shore this summer at Seaport Pier, shout out, or doing our college tour in the fall, and visiting like local schools to like connect with college students and talk about our experiences throughout those similar years of our life. Like, we have to start somewhere, but I do know that like we both want this to be so much bigger than we could even imagine at this point in time.
Yeah, totally. And just like even talking about it is so exciting. And like, imagine how many people are like gonna listen to this and be like, wow, that would be such a breath of fresh air. Like when you go somewhere with the intent of like just being able to like take the mask off and like just show up as who you are and like not feel like you're going to be judged or have to be anything or have to look put together. And I think it's just like that in itself is just going to bring so much connection, and like you're just going to get positive reinforcement from that too, you know, because it's going to feel so good to like be yourself and connect with people like that, that's the way that you're going to show up in your everyday life.
Yeah.
You know, at least that's how I feel. Like,
yeah, no, absolutely.
Just like the positive reinforcement of like putting yourself out there and getting good feedback about it, whether that's like doing a podcast or if it's just like being vulnerable with someone, like that just feels really good and it like makes you want to do it more.
Well, humans were meant for connection. Like if you ever watch like the Blue Zone documentary on Netflix, like there's one thing that's consistent across like all of the locations, and it's like the sense of purpose and human connection. Like we are literally meant to connect with others. And so I feel like whether you do that by putting yourself out there and like receiving feedback of like, I really resonate with that, or even better in real person, like finding people that prioritize the same things that you do and have those same like intrinsic values, especially as you enter adulthood and you evolve, like finding your people. They always say like your vibe attracts your tribe. So just like showing up as your most authentic self, I feel like only attracts people that are similar.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what we're trying to do, is bring those people together. And again, like with the same mission of, you know, we're never alone. You're never going through something unique, even if it might look a little bit different. Like our lives look very different, but those underlying emotions and feelings are very much the same.
Yeah, totally.
I feel like it's probably a natural point to wrap up. I feel like this episode hopefully gave, you know, everyone listening a little bit of an introduction into like who we are and how our separate paths kind of came together. And I know there's so many exciting episodes to come, but we do want to close out every episode, right, with our little segment of mental health resources that are helping us this week.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first with yours?
I can go first. Mine is a background, and you actually sent this to me in the very early stages of the Only Human Project. But it's just a quote. It says, "The recipe is simple. Dream big, and when you think the dream is big enough, triple it in size. Once you visualize the weight of what you're capable of, stretch it past the horizon of your mind until you see into the future. Sink into what's possible, and then come back and get to work." And I feel like it just makes like, when I see that and I read that, it just reminds me that like there is no dream that is too big. And that doesn't mean that you don't have to put the work in on the other end, like, but never stop dreaming and like making that dream as big as you can.
I still look at that quote sometimes. I think I actually sourced it from, I think the Den posted it.
Oh,
and then I found on their story, and then I sent it to you, and I resonate with
like,
it so much.
yeah.
It's so good.
It like kind of makes everything like seem very simple. And it really is. You just have to dream something, and then you have to put in the work to get there.
Yeah.
There's
I love
a lot
that.
of things in between, but just that's all it comes down to.
Yeah. If you have those things, it's enough, right?
Yeah. Right, what's yours?
My mental health resource this week. I've been loving, I always go on morning walks, but I've been loving putting the headphones away for my walks, especially as like the weather gets a little bit nicer and like the birds are out and like the sun is just like hitting trees and like houses in certain ways. And I feel like people probably just term this as like a meditation walk or something, but I had found that previously I was like blasting a podcast in my ears, and I'd like get back from my hour walk and be like, where did I even go? Like, you ever like get in your car and you drive home from somewhere and like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
Which is like alarming when you're operating a vehicle, less alarming when you're like taking a walk.
Walking.
But like same premise. And so I think just being more present, I think it allows me to be a little bit more mindful, just sit with my thoughts, just take in my surroundings, and just enjoy the walk for what it is, like being in nature and just getting to spend time with myself. And I've been loving that.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like it's so important to set aside some purposeful time to like not be distracted.
Especially in
because-
this day and age. Like
oh
we're
my
getting
gosh.
bombarded
Literally.
from all angles. So like if you can just like take a beat to like just spend time with yourself in your solitude and in quiet,
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable
Especially
sometimes.
in nature.
In
It's, like,
nature,
so
yeah.
refreshing.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
has been doing wonders for my
Yeah.
mental health.
That's amazing. I love that. Thanks so much for tuning in to the first episode of the Only Human podcast. We're going to be doing this weekly, every Monday, so you can start your week off with a little dose of humanity.
Yeah. A little weekly dose. We like really liked the idea of a Monday release just so it can kind of like set the tone for a week and a little bit of like positivity to start.
Yeah, I love that. All right. See you next time.
We will see you next time.